Alright, what's going on, everybody? It's Comic Book Novice, aka Contra Lad, aka you know the rest of that shit. I got two special guests with me today. Introduce yourself, special guests.
Yo, what up? My name is Mike Lowry, aka Mike.
What up? It's Frank back again for the next one.
Oh, this is the first one. We're not doing the other one.
All right, well, for the first time, you never seen us before.
We're back for the first time
Mike
ever.
and Frank up in this bitch for the first time ever.
Anyways, and this is gonna have
straight out the womb.
This is gonna have no cuts, no edits or nothing. Fucking
like
so
a real
we're
podcast.
Just going straight raw with it. But so yeah, like I was saying in one of my first videos, I told y'all that I had a couple of homies that initially got me into comics, and these are them. These are these two guys. So I wanted to get into just everybody's origins in comics and everything, because like you guys know, I was never really into, I was into the source material, but I never really knew stuff ahead of time of when we would go see a movie. I would always ask you guys the
deep cuts.
Yeah, what's the backstory of these characters in this movie and shit, and that's what really got me into wanting to get into comics. So I would know things for myself and all that. But how did you guys get into comics as kids, or whenever you guys did get into comics? Right?
Well, I think it was the show for me first. I don't know, I remember seeing I think Spider-Man or something, or it might have even been X-Men, and I was just fucking floored, and I was like, what, this is so awesome. It was actually Batman. Okay,
the
so
animated series.
So they had a movie that came out way back in the day. It was my first movie I've ever seen in theaters, where it's Batman the Phantasm. Yeah, Phantasm.
Oh, yes,
seen that in
dude.
theaters, and I was like, what the fuck? I need to get some comics.
You saw that in the theater?
Yeah, see, I never saw that back in the day when we were kids. I just recently saw that as an adult.
Dude, it was my favorite shit ever.
For an animated Batman film,
It's still one of the best, in my opinion.
that's mainly geared towards kids and stuff. That was a good plot, real drama and action scenes, and you felt Batman was in jeopardy and shit. That was a good.
Yeah, and Joker was fucking creepy as
bro.
shit.
Yeah.
It had so many twists and turns and oh shit moments.
Yeah, it's still one of my favorite movies. But yeah, that's really what did it for me. Where I was like,
fuck yeah,
what the fuck? This is awesome. I was just and then I went to the comic book store, Coin Cards and Comics. It's been there fucking forever.
Yeah.
Went there, and back then they used to have 10-cent comics.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good ones, fucking Batman and Spider-Man. Those were the first two I got into. I was Spider-Man, Batman, and I really like
a lot
those.
of people's first.
I like those
characters.
because they're darker. Even Spider-Man is
moments.
dark for Marvel. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
it has
there's
darker
Because no one
stories.
what'd you say? No one likes spiders.
Yeah, because because I watched this interview with Stan Lee, and he said that when he first wanted to make Spider-Man, the people at Timely Comics, or I don't know if it was Timely still at that point or if it was already Marvel, but he told them the idea of Spider-Man, and they were like, no, you can't make a hero out of Spider-Man. Nobody likes spiders. Nobody's gonna read that.
Yeah, I remember that.
I've
heard that too.
And then he just decided to put it in the last issue of Amazing Fantasy, and then people just loved it, bought it up like hotcakes, and then here we are, X amount of years later.
Decades later.
It's still
and
the
Spider-Man
best-selling.
is the most popular superhero in
It's
the
the highest
world.
grossing movies too.
Even if you don't know nothing about anything comic book related or anything like that, you still know who Spider-Man is.
Yeah, and Batman and Superman, but
Yeah.
Marvel is definitely Spider-Man without a doubt.
Yeah, that's their flagship.
Yeah.
But
He's the poster child.
so where'd you go from there? After you got into it from the movie,
I just started. Yeah, I just read some comics, and I really liked, as I was saying, the DC, Batman comics, because it was really dark and psychological. And as a kid, I fucking loved shit like that, like real things. It felt like Batman could be a real person. Fucking Joker could be a real person. Two-Face could be a real person. All these fucking people were real. They could have these psychic kind of breaks where they're walking the line of insanity or fucking genius or whatever.
Yeah, like all those things like could happen like in the world.
Yeah, like someone
like,
could be Batman.
Because it's not like they had powers. They were just like that dude. Like Batman, like his powers being super rich, like so he could get all those gadgets and stuff. Like he does have the training and everything. But even if he had the training and he didn't have money, he wouldn't be able to afford like Batmobiles and Bat bikes and shit. But a rich guy in the real world gets some training up, he could actually do that.
Well, what I like about Batman is you have the whole like, I knew a very minimum amount about like the whole League of Shadows.
Yeah.
It wasn't until Batman Begins came around I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about this sort of side of like the how they expanded his origin story. With that, like going from like the original old detective comics that he was more like depicted in. You didn't have that like whole Lazarus Pit supernatural.
Yeah, he didn't have an origin other than
it wasn't dark and gritty like you said.
Yeah.
Like they completely revamped him later with all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And that stuff is like one of the reasons like why Batman's one of my favorites now, because like all that behind the scenes stuff, like with the League of Shadows and like Ra's al Ghul and all that.
Yes.
And like
Dahlia.
Love it. And that actually brings up, because like the other day, because I just started watching Young Justice, and he appears in that, and like I've heard two different pronunciations for his name, like and they do it in Arrow, like in the Arrowverse too, like in most stuff like that I've heard his name said in, it's Ra's al Ghul. But like in Young Justice, Young Justice and like Arrowverse, they say Ra's al Ghul.
I say Ra's.
I like both.
I say Ra's al Ghul.
I say Ra's too, because that's what I saw growing up. But then like I heard Raish and I was like, that. I think culturally, I'm not sure what like language that's supposed to like, if it's fictional or like if it's derived from some like legit stuff.
I think it's like Arabic, because like in Arrow,
Raish is kind of sick sounding. Like,
or Ra's al Ghul, I think just rolls off the tongue like Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah. Sounds like a it sounds like a delicious
rolls.
Italian dish.
Give me that Ra's al Ghul.
I'll take a Ra's al Ghul.
Maybe French
over ice.
It's like a French dessert.
All right. So, what about you, Mr. Frank? Like, how did you dive into this wonderful world of fiction?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've touched on this a little bit before, but same way as Mike. Like, I remember my earliest memories of a kid and getting into anything comic related definitely came from like the early animated series with Spider-Man, X-Men, those fucking theme songs, the Batman animated series. Fucking and I remember I think I was telling you before, but like some of those early comic book movies that sort of like laid the foundation for like this modern day era shit, they had definitely already came out with like, I mean, I think like the Tim Burton, Jack Nicholson, and Michael Keaton.
Oh yeah, the Batmans.
I think that came out in like '95. You know what I mean? So I was like 3 around that time. So like those movies were kind of out. Like Christopher Reeves had already been doing his thing as Superman forever. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm sure I have super like memories I don't have of like watching those, but like that I just knew comics were always like those characters and that whole hero supervillain sort of dynamic was always ingrained into my like imagination, and when I would like play and pretend and all that shit. Yeah,
because everybody as a kid wanted to be Batman.
Yeah,
or
like
Spider-Man,
having the little Batman costume.
Dude, I had Batman costume.
Did you guys have like as kids? You remember those?
The ears never stood up. It was like a puppy dog when it's confused.
Do you guys remember that old school toy? Like it was web shooters, and like it just had like silly strings.
Oh, dude, I had those.
Play with X and made a horrible mess.
Just like everywhere.
Well, that gets into my
parents get pissed.
Well, that gets me into my other childhood crack addiction, which is like action figures. I used to fucking have a bunch, like 5 Batmans. They were all fucking cool. The like Batmobile. I was like, fuck. I remember one person had the Voltron, fucking the whole Voltron, God, and I fucking lost my shit. I was like, what the fuck? That's like $150 toy.
Yeah, for real.
And that was back in the 90s, like $150. Like that was buku.
Dude,
bucks.
you had to buy them separately.
Yeah.
Or buy them as a big bundle and like $100 fucking.
Do kids even play with action figures today?
I don't know. Like there are definitely still action figures like popping and shit. Like
Fortnite now.
Like there's this guy that I follow on or that I'm subscribed to on YouTube. He's like I haven't really just talked to him, but he's in like I'm pretty sure he's in the Discord that I'm in with like it's called the K Squad. Shout out to the K Squad. His name is Toyomic. toys, I'm pretty sure, but like his whole thing is that he collects action figures and stuff, but like he like poses them and like does all this stuff to them, like
he's a photographer.
Like, yeah, and he like takes pictures of him, like doing dope stuff. And like I seen some that he did the other day. Awesome. He was using like cotton like as like smoke, like in the pictures, like, and like just like the way he like took the picture and like edited it, like it actually looked like smoke, and like it was dope. But like people are definitely still like collecting.
I seen this Mandalorian one,
action figures and everything. I don't know about kids these days, but like I feel like nowadays, like once you get like to the age of like 7, you're done with toys.
Well, dude, we didn't have internet like back then. Like, I didn't have internet. I had to go somewhere to get some shit. To get some excitement.
But also, real quick, I just want to add, like we were talking before, I definitely, like, when I first started seeing physical copies of comics and shit, I would go up mainly to, like, certain King Supers, like, grocery stores, or, like, you know, you catch them over by, like, the magazines and shit, at, like, if you would go to a library or, like, a fucking bookstore or something. But that's when I first really started being like, oh, shit, and, like, collecting random ass issues, like, you know, over a period of time. But
that's like how, like, when
I didn't discover a full-on comic book store. My bad to cut you off, but like I didn't discover a full-blown like comic book store where they had boxes and drawers, walls of issues and shit until I fucking discovered fucking Hero Headquarters, when it was like its first location over by what the fuck is over there? Over by the Dollar General, over by like Washington and like 80.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like over where your insurance place was.
Yeah, I know.
It used to be over there, like when I was a young ass kid.
So that was before I even started going to stores and stuff. And that's crazy because you grew up like a block away from Mile High Comics.
And it didn't even
like your whole life you were just 5 minutes away from like most people's mecca.
Well, you know what's funny is that wasn't there though for like a long time.
Oh, they moved in there like later?
Yeah, like they just recently occupied that space. Maybe a couple years before we all really started fucking going there heavily.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't there super
like,
long.
I think the first comic book store I went into was Coins, Cards, and Comics. Like I had no idea like how like coveted like Mile High Comics was until like I really like got into it. Like like when I started actually like talking to people, like they're like, because like I sent out some pictures of Mile High Comics like the first time I went back. And like a lot of people in Discord were like holy shit, like that's your local comic shop, like like people want to come here just so they can go to Mile High Comics.
Yeah, from all around the world.
Yeah, it's crazy. But all right, went off on a tangent a little bit, but like after you guys got into comics, like how did you, like, what character, like other than like the obvious ones like Spider-Man and Batman and everything, like what character like really like grabbed your attention? Like who's your favorite now?
Well, you know what's really interesting is that at the time I seen this character, and this was actually the first rated R movie I've ever seen, but it was Blade.
Oh yeah.
And at the time I had no idea that he was Marvel or anything, but I was fucking, that movie consumed my life for so long. Like after I watched it, I was like, it was the dopest shit I've ever seen. And this is like a 9-year-old kid like flipping out at a rated R movie that has all that shit in it. But I loved every minute of it. I kept saying that line as a kid. Frost! Like I would fucking be Blade in my room, in my imagination.
Playing pretend with the sword.
Killing fucking vampires,
with the Christmas wrapping tube.
With the fucking paper cardboard tube.
Yeah,
dude,
sword.
He got me hype as fuck. And then the music that they played in there, I was like, oh shit.
Because at that time Wesley Snipes was obviously already a huge star.
Yeah.
And when Blade came around, like you said, it was sort of like dark, but like it was like a horror movie essentially, but you had this action like hero character in the middle of all of it, and he was like he could survive in sunlight, he wore the sunglasses, he had the badass car and the guns and the weapons. You're like, this is fucking sick.
Yeah.
And you had like you were saying, I had no idea he was a
Marvel.
Marvel.
Yeah, I didn't find out till years later, and I saw him in the fucking animated series of fucking X-Men or something, and I was like, what
Spider-Man.
The fuck?
Yeah,
he was in something. I was like, Blade? I was like losing my shit.
Yeah, I had no idea. Because I saw those movies back in the day too, like when we were coming up, and like you said, I didn't know he was like a superhero or anything like from any sort of company. Like I thought he was just Blade. Like I thought that was like a new concept. I didn't know that it had source material that it drew from and everything like that. And like I haven't really dived into Blade. Like he's been in a few things that I've read recently, which is cool. Like he's like we all always known he's been a badass, but I don't really know too much about his backstory. But those movies were like so dope. Like you didn't really need to know anything else but that. Like
even what I liked at the very end of the third one is Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel's characters. They were actually like a real the Night Stalkers, I think they're called in the comics, but they have like their own little offshoot and mini series and stuff like that. Like they were original Blade characters.
Well, and speaking of Ryan Reynolds,
Spin-off.
he has that role to thank for Deadpool, really, because he's kind of the same character.
Yeah.
In that, like,
absolutely.
he was like the cocky, like, oh, I shoved it in my last ass cheek, and he's getting his ass kicked, and he's not budging or being intimidated. He was the same character as in Deadpool. So it's like that's kind of what started him in that character. He plays the same character in every movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel
he's
like
Deadpool
Ryan,
in every
I
fucking
feel like
movie.
Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool in every movie.
Deadpool's
that
Ryan
he's in.
Reynolds. Yeah.
Like Deadpool's playing Ryan Reynolds in real life.
Like he is Deadpool now. It's not even Wade Wilson. It's fucking Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Him and Robert Downey.
Damn alliterations. We've always known.
Wade Wilson.
Yeah. Wade Wilson, Ryan Reynolds. It's over.
Oh, God.
So like, is Deadpool is Blade still your favorite character to this day?
Well, no, just as a kid, like I haven't read a lot of comics of his. Like I don't have any comics of him, but he was one of those surprise characters that I had to be like, oh shit. But one that I really loved was Spawn, and from the movie as well. I saw Spawn. I was like, this fucking movie's awesome, and still to this day, Spawn is one of my favorite comic book characters.
Yeah. His stuff, like, this has been, like, I didn't know about this until, like, recently when I started, like, collecting comics, like, in this last few months. But, like, this, like, 2021 has been, like, the year of Spawn. Like, first of all, like, the main series, like, the main Spawn series is, like, the longest running independent comic series, like, of all time. Like, it's up to, like, they're into, like, the 320s of issues now in the main, like, comic, but they've also started King Spawn this year. Yeah, they started Gunslinger Spawn this year, and they're starting Scorched here pretty soon.
Well, those characters have, like, he's done the Gunslinger in the past, and there's like a medieval Spawn, and there's like all these different versions of Spawn. But this is like a revamp. This would be like the new 52 essentially of like his world of characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then they got that a whole another separate comic like called just Spawn's Universe. Like what's like everything that's going on in there. Like I haven't jumped into that one yet, but
dude,
Spawn's the shit.
Yeah, and he's just like you guys should check out like what is going on in that comic. And like another thing I love about Spawn and like about like Image and like Todd McFarlane and everything is that Spawn is like the main comic. Like I'm pretty sure all of them that are going on right now, like they're like some of the most popular comics out right now, and they're the cheapest and they're the cheapest ones out. Like every other comic is like consistently like $3.99, $4.99, $5.99, but Spawn is always $2.99.
Nice.
Like except for if it's like the first issue of the series, those are usually like $4, but after that it's always $2.99. Yeah. Like, which is dope. Like, cause that, like, you can tell they really love the material. They really just want to put it out.
Yeah.
And
Todd McFarlane, man, he's like a student of Stan Lee.
Yeah.
His protege.
Mm-hmm. Him and Jim Lee and everybody like that. Everybody that left Marvel to create Image.
Yeah.
Like
that could be a whole other thing. Is just talking about writers and artists. And
yeah. We'll get that one. And that's
speaking of Spawn, the artwork in the comics are fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Just absolutely amazing that someone can fucking do that.
Yeah, like now, like nowadays, like there's the last
everybody doing that. You got Invincible, The Boys.
Yeah, like the last Spawn issue that I read, like I think it was like the most recent one to come out, but in it like he's fighting like a group of vampires and stuff, and like
Blade.
He just like rips one of their heads off,
shoves it up the other one's ass,
and like. It's like super gory and all that stuff, and like you don't really get that type of stuff. Like you get violence and everything from like everybody else, but like you don't really get like the gore, like seeing someone's like spine hanging out their head, like
Mortal Kombat,
stuff like that. Like from like most comics, but Spawn like is really not afraid to just like take it there.
Well, what's really interesting about Spawn comics is that he's like balancing the line between
like Ghost Rider.
heaven and hell, where it's like
Yeah.
he's not accepted in hell because he's not fucking evil
He doesn't
as
conform.
shit, but the angels don't accept him because he's a spawn of fucking
Yeah.
Well, he's
of
also
Satan
trying
energy and shit. So it's like, what the fuck? He's like battling demons,
Yeah,
but then
angels,
he'll battle
warriors.
angels.
Yep.
He's
And then
just
human
he's just
shit.
like
Yeah.
fucking alone
Yeah.
dude who
He's like Clint
has to
Eastwood.
fight
Yeah.
both. He's
Yeah.
like some fucking, he's like some Constantine kind of shit,
like-
where he's
Ghost
battling
Rider-
demons and
Ghost
it's like
Rider and
biblical in some
Constantine.
aspects
Yeah.
where it's
He's
like,
like-
what the fuck?
He's like Neapolitan ice cream.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. It's like the yin and the yang, perfect balance.
Yeah. But
All
also,
right, so-
he's trying to get like he has his own redemption story.
Yeah,
he like
yeah.
doesn't want the
That's what I
Spawn
love,
life.
yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I just
Yeah.
want to be Al Simmons again.
He was forced into
Yeah.
it, and now he's just
Oh, no.
going with what he's
Dude, the
dealt.
animated series of that too.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What do you think about the whole casting of
Shout out to
Jamie-
Keith David.
of
What?
Jamie Foxx?
I think it's awesome.
You think you like it?
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, but it's like, okay, bro, that was like 3 years ago. That
Do
we heard
something
that.
with it.
It's like, come on now. Either don't. I'm not, man.
Like shit or get off the pot.
Well, I haven't seen anything.
I've been
I want to
hearing-
hear. Like that's the thing. It's like we've been hearing about it for so long.
But
It's
yeah.
like I want to see. Like I want to see him in this outfit
You know
or
what's
with
funny?
the face.
Yeah,
and
but, like,
burnt
that's
shit.
like the
Because he
same
wants to
thing.
direct it himself.
That's like the same thing like with Black Adam. Like The Rock got announced to play Black Adam
Years
like
and years.
and we
when
ago.
we
just
were like
now
when we were in
seen
high
some.
school.
Yeah.
But that
And,
shit
like,
was
we-
orgasmic. Yeah,
Yeah, and we just now got like some like stuff to see about it.
some teasers. But that shit was awesome. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is like I've been here. I've followed like these niche little blogs and like I've searched the fucking bowels of all these comic book, movie, show websites like for years and years, ever since like the internet was created. Just searching all this like info late at night, obsessing, trying to connect all my fucking
Dots.
conspiracy theory strings on the walls about like sequel news and shows and like all that shit. So yeah, it's kind of hilarious like how big it is now.
So so let's get into your favorite characters as a
Favorites? Definitely it's always been Spidey. Spidey's always been my favorite. And Batman, like Mike said, I had fucking so many Spider-Man action figures, Batman action figures. Especially because like back in the day, they would just crank those things out like just to make toys.
yeah,
It's like you had like the water Batman, the snow Batman, fucking Spider-Man car, all this shit.
Yeah, I had the Spider-Man car.
Yeah, all that stuff.
That's fucking the lights shoot out like webs.
They had like a zip line Spider-Man shit that you could like.
Dude, they had so much shit.
Yeah,
I was in love with it all.
yeah.
So Spidey for life.
Spidey for life, and nowadays, I always thought Ant-Man was cool, but what they did with him towards like the end of the whole Endgame saga like really made me a big Ant-Man fan, just because his and Doctor Strange, just because they could go through all the different realms and the quantum verse and different dimensions and shit like that. Just is like there's so much limitless potential for journeys and adventures.
Yeah, I'm super hyped for Multiverse of Madness. Like I feel like I'm more hyped for that than I am for like anything that's coming.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think if Ant-Man
It's
was
Spidey.
on Titan fighting with them, they would have won.
Ant-Man?
Yeah.
Maybe.
He would have fucked up Thanos. He would have got big and did some shit. But I don't know. That's just me. I'm a huge Ant-Man fan too. But you know what's
Also-
interesting? That you were telling me that one of your things growing up was one of your favorites is Deadpool.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people knew about Deadpool back when I was young.
Yeah.
Like I would ask every fucking buddy I know at my school, and they looked at me like I was fucking high.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, Deadpool, this fucking guy? They're like, no, I don't
you know
know
what's
who the
funny?
fuck is.
You know what's
I'm
funny?
like, what the fuck? And now it's crazy how he's everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
you can't. Everyone
It's a
knows who the
cultural
fuck Deadpool
phenomenon.
is now.
Yeah.
But back in the day, like no one knew. You had to read his comics, and I just stumbled upon his comics one day in a comic book store.
Well, what's crazy is like when I was a kid, I stumbled upon him because I would always collect these like little encyclopedias and just like consume all the fucking information about all the different characters and all that shit. And I stumbled upon him just because he looked like Spider-Man, because he had the red and the black. but his eyes were like flipped. Like he had the small white and then mostly black instead of Spidey with the flip flop. And I was like, this dude is sick. He's got fucking ninja swords and he had a healing factor like Wolverine. I was like, what is this guy?
Well, and he used to just make appearances. Like, I remember I read him in one comic. I don't remember the issue. It was like an X-Men comic or something. But he was in there, and he was only like a guest appearance. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And he wasn't taking anything serious. He was just like fucking hilarious.
And
like,
he would randomly show up in the animated series too, like just super quick cameos.
Yeah, I think the first time I ever like was exposed to Deadpool was Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe.
Oh shit, yeah, that was
and that was like later on.
Yeah, that's way.
Like later on in like his adventures.
Well, I found out that he was created the same year I was born, so 91. Like he's, that's when his character was made. And I was like, oh, I always thought that was awesome because he's always been one of my favorites. And that's kind of like a synchronicity thing. I'm like, oh shit, that's dope.
And also going back to like...
He's been as old as me.
Yeah. Also going back to like how we were talking about Constantine and Spawn with the whole caught between heaven and hell, biblical stuff. Because of that whole mythology, I always had a soft spot for Ghost Rider.
Oh, yeah. Dude, Ghost Rider is...
Because he was like more darker for the Marvel Universe. Because he actually dealt with the devil and Mephisto, and I like that he had fucking chain. He was kind of like, like Spawn, and like fucking with the motorcycle and the flames. Just because like coming from being a kid with fucking having a biker as a dad and shit, like that whole aesthetic like really appealed to me. All the skulls and the fucking flames and all that shit. So when I discovered him, I don't even remember how the fuck I knew about Ghost Rider. I remember toys being super early on in the comics. And I think he shows up in like some of the animated shows. But I always just had like a cool thing for Ghost Rider and fucking
Did you enjoy the movies? The old like the Ghost Rider movies that came out?
So what's funny,
Nicolas Cage?
Nicolas.
I actually enjoy him.
So what's funny is I really liked the first one, even though it's like got some like cheesy parts. But I think like for what it did and like its time, it's like I really enjoyed that.
That's
And then they tried to make it like they made a second one and they tried to take it in a different direction, which I like understood, but like the quality in terms of the writing and the plot and shit was just so much more smaller scale and downgraded that it just didn't come off. Like it's like if you put the two movies together, there would have been like a badass Ghost Rider movie, but like separately, the first one's dope and has all the big effects and big stakes and villains and all that, but like a little much on the cheese, whereas the second one's like not big enough and like it was a worse movie, like just quality wise.
Well,
overall.
Yeah, and I feel like that was a time when everyone like Marvel was afraid to make our movies other than like Blade.
Yeah,
they made Blade way back, but that's when they were still like, oh no, we have to appeal to everyone. Like
I feel like
if they would have made it an R-rated, that shit would have been so fucking
that's true.
Amazing.
Killing it. Like I don't know why they. I mean, I guess just from what I've read over the years, like I like the third Blade movie with Ryan Reynolds, but I guess that one just was not received very well out of all of them. And maybe that is why Marvel was like, I don't know if we should do another R-rated. Keep going with that.
Yeah, like they didn't know.
They were
how
afraid to take chances.
Yeah, because they didn't know how successful this type of shit could have been.
Yeah.
Because but once they started like interweaving stories and like bringing callbacks to like everything, like, and then like people realized like, oh, this is all eventually leading towards something, like that's when people got invested in everything, and that's when they felt like they could take more chances, I think.
Well, I think too, like what people forget about is like all the behind the scenes studio shit. Like if you go back and watch a lot of the earlier movies, one of the big producers on a lot of them was this guy named Avi Arad, who deals with a lot of the Marvel properties. And it's crazy to think that Kevin Feige was still making his way up the corporate ladder all these years. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't always in the position he is in now. Like he was like He had a small like producer type role on the very first X-Men.
And he was just counting his days.
Yeah, he was just biding his time, fucking spider log, and fucking. So I think that too also helped the movies, like, not just solely him alone, obviously, but you know, just the complicated moving parts of the machine that Marvel is.
Yeah. Who do you guys think has been like the best director in the MCU so far?
It's fucking Russo brothers, man. They came,
oh yeah, okay, that's a given.
They came and killed. All right, well, without
them take
being
them
given,
out. Take them out.
I'm gonna say. Damn, you know what's kind of funny is that like Joss Whedon gets so much shit nowadays.
Yeah.
But I really liked the first Avengers and Ultron.
Yeah.
I thought those movies were fucking
and
sick.
And plus, like I'm a fan of his, like just because those movies, and he also.
That Justice League was garbage though.
Yeah. That like definitely tarnished his.
I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, Joss?
But he was also the writer on the Astonishing X-Men comic.
And he also did
and
Serenity.
Like that was super dope. I liked it.
Or not Serenity, what's it
Firefly.
called? Firefly.
Yeah.
Oh, Firefly is fucking amazing.
Yeah, that was his.
Yeah, that's...
I went into that shit blind, and I didn't even know it was one season. I was so pissed.
I only saw Serenity.
I was late to Firefly, but I was like, this is and what's fucked up about that show, the very last episode, bro, it's like the dopest shit ever. And you're like, oh my god, this fucking show is amazing. And then it's like, nothing ever again other than Serenity, which I am a fan of Serenity, but I wish if they would have dragged out Serenity to like multiple movies, to multiple seasons of a show, that would have been way better. Yeah, like a fucking Game of Thrones. Oh my god. Yeah, but yeah, Serenity was dope.
Back to the comics.
All right,
like do you guys have like a favorite storyline or a favorite event that was in the comic books, like Marvel or DC, anything that you can think of? Like, what do you say was your favorite?
Michael.
I don't know. There's so many good things. Like I've been reading a lot of Doctor Strange, and there's this one Doctor Strange where Loki becomes Sorcerer Supreme, and he actually goes to Doctor Strange, and he's like. He's like you can't like he's like you aren't as strong as me. Like he's being cocky, but he's being like he thinks he's being truthful. Like you can't protect things like I can. Yeah. And some shit goes down. I'm not gonna spoil it, but shit goes down, and turns out Loki was right. And then like he fucking ends up becoming Sorcerer Supreme and locking shit down. It's really good. I recommend anyone read it. It's you could find it just. Google what series did Loki become Sorcerer Supreme and Doctor Strange. Yeah. But yeah, I've been really fucking with Doctor Strange lately. He's like my new dude.
Yeah, you gotta check out Death of Doctor Strange that's going on right now.
Yeah,
that's some interesting stuff. Like I'm not gonna spoil that for nobody, but that was like the first comic that I bought when I got back into it. That was like the first thing I saw on the rec. It was just boom, Death of Doctor Strange. I was like, what? And I picked that up, and then like the Batman that was out that week, and then like a couple of like trade paperback books.
But they pretty much have a death of everyone.
Yeah, and like everybody comes back, like somehow, some way. But it's interesting to see how they get rid of them the first time. Yeah. What about you?
I mean, I've said before, I fucking love. Like, because when I was a kid, it always seemed like the main universe of Marvel, the 616, because there's all these different universes, obviously, but that's like the main one that's been canon, like the primary universe, like since they started making these in the 60s and shit. But fucking the Infinity Saga with the Gauntlet was always like my favorite as a youngster. Just because, like, that was always, like I said, what the primary universe was sort of leading up to, in a sense. But I was kind of thinking about it, too. And actually, I also really liked when the X-Men and Apocalypse become a threat, or when Apocalypse becomes a threat to the X-Men, it sort of gets, like, the whole Marvel universe involved, to a sense, too, or to a degree.
And I always thought that was a pretty epic storyline as well, because I always saw Apocalypse and Thanos sort of on that same tier of like OP villains.
Yeah.
So that every hero had to come together and they all had to fucking take him down.
Well, even in the shows, I would see Apocalypse in the shows, and he would just fuck shit up.
Yeah.
He would just fuck shit up. I'm like, damn.
He's like, yeah, I basically just have every power that you could ever think of. And you're like, well, fuck.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
Real quick, who do you think is stronger, Thanos or Darkseid? Because I think Darkseid would actually take him.
I don't know.
That'd be.
I don't even think
Darkseid's
DC.
a fucking crazy.
I don't even hold
I know,
DC
that's
in a high regard these days, so I'm just gonna say Thanos.
Oh damn, that's fucked up.
Well, that's because you're soured because of the.
That's,
you're bitter.
That's fucked up.
You're bitter because of the movies.
They're just
in my mind, yes, Marvel has DC beat movies wise, other than talking about fucking like Watchmen and that genre.
Here's what I'll say. I'll say that.
But the
Marvel,
comics are, I think, in my opinion, DC comics are way better.
Marvel's movies are definitely way better than DC's. Obviously, like I don't think anybody can like disagree with that
right now
like,
at this point in time.
And like even like the most loyal fan has to say that Marvel's movies are better, but DC's shows, like TV shows and series, are way better than Marvel's. Like except like. Or they have been. Like, nowadays they're getting better with, like, the Disney Plus shows and all that. Like, they're starting to catch up with the shows.
They're catching up.
But all those shows are, like, one season, like, just, like, leading up to more movies and shit. Like, but DC shows, like, the Arrowverse and, like, all their animated shows. Like, Young Justice is dope as hell. Like, and that's an animated show.
Yeah.
Like, that show is amazing.
Well, there's so many good.
But that actually leads into a nice, it's a nice segue into my next question. Like, Marvel or DC for you guys? What do you think is like? What's your go-to for some comic goodness?
Marvel all day.
For me, it's DC.
Really?
Yeah, like I'm a huge DC fan. Even to this day, like everyone's like on Marvel, which I get because the movies they're taking over, they're doing great. But like even
the movies,
well, even with like like even with everything that the Marvel movies have done, like still some of my favorite movies are DC movies, like The Watchmen.
Yeah.
Like there's like fucking The Dark Knight.
Right.
That whole trilogy is fucking my favorite shit ever. But it's like, but as far they don't have a big enough category. Like the movies that they do have are good, other than the newer ones. Like the ones that are just standalones, like The Joker, fucking amazing. Shit like that is really awesome. But yeah, I don't know. Like I just love like V for Vendetta is another one. That's DC. Not a lot of people know, but that's fucking amazing.
That's an amazing movie and comic book.
Same
and
writer.
That's like one of the ones that like the standalone ones that I would say like both the comic and the movie are both amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of like Watchmen, I think Watchmen is one of the best graphic novels ever.
Yeah.
Like I've ever read.
Yeah.
It's fucking incredible.
I hear that a lot.
It's so good.
Like I hear that from a lot of people. But
I hear that from everyone too.
I tried to read it one
Dude,
time
it's so
and like
good.
it's like The Witcher. It's like The Witcher 3 game. Like everybody loves it, and like it has everything that I do love, and so it should click with me. But like
nah.
it just doesn't. Like I gotta give it another try. Like maybe I wasn't in the right headspace to read Watchmen at the time, but like when I did try to read it, I was just like, oh god, this is slow paced at the beginning.
Every time you guys came over, that
MVP.
All right. So, anyways, back
Marvel
to
all day.
The graphic novel. Like that is just great. Like if you get a chance, read it. It's better than the movie, but the movie's really, it did a really good job, I think, of like
what's another
putting it all into a movie.
Fucking indie comic that I forgot to mention last time, along the lines of like the Watchmen's and the V for Vendettas and shit, that I always liked was fucking Judge Dredd.
Dude, even that movie, I loved the first one. A lot of people didn't really like it. I was like, that is my shit.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite movies growing up.
I saw that like way back. Like that was like
it's got Robbie Schneids.
Yep, Robbie Schneids.
Well, even the newer one. You seen the newer one?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too.
With
Like how they did the slow-mo effect with it. Yep, my dude.
Yep, and the girl that has the psychic powers.
I thought they were gonna make that a franchise too. Like
enough people didn't know what it was.
Well, and a lot of people didn't really receive it well,
suck.
or they didn't sell a lot. But me personally, I would love to see a second one.
He was
Keep
a
going
badass
with that
Judge
shit.
Dredd.
Even his partner was like, by the end, I was like, dude, this is a good ass fucking end to a movie.
Who was Judge Dredd in the newer one?
The guy from The Boys.
The Boys. You haven't seen The Boys yet, huh?
Scourge from Ragnarok.
Oh, that's my guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the shit.
He's the best. Lord of the Rings.
He's all over comic books now.
Yeah.
He's all over
he's
comic
in Star
books.
Trek.
He knows. He's like, I'm trying to get that franchise money, dog.
Yep.
Wow, yeah, The Boys, bro. The Boys is really
speaking
good
of like
Invincible.
Yeah, I was just about to say Invincible is like one of my favorite comics out right now. Or like it's not out right now, but like since I've gotten into it again, like fucking of what I've read, Invincible is like in the top 5 for sure. Like it's so dope. Like I haven't watched the show yet, but I've read like the first 40 issues of the comic.
So that's
and,
already more than the show.
It's
Without a
super
doubt,
dope. Like
that's
it's all gory and like you get violence from like every comic book, but like you don't get motherfuckers
head smashes.
Yeah, you don't get head squishes and like holes punched through chests and like just like. And I dig how he's like Superman a little bit, but like he's.
That's what we were saying about Icarus.
He's like evil. Yeah. It's dope.
Yeah,
like,
it's
like
well, and what's crazy about those comics is that I heard about those like a couple years ago. Like I don't know and I was like, okay, I want to collect all of these because I hear it's a fucking amazing comic, and I was just gonna do the single issues. You couldn't even find the whole kind of series anywhere. You would just have to find like the chapters or something.
Yeah, I don't even want to know how much like the first issue of Invincible would be right now.
I have the second, like just the regular second issue, but like I only have that one. But now it's like everywhere because of the show.
Yeah.
It's fucking. I could find the whole thing if I wanted. For $150.
See, I'm not trying to spend that. I'm not trying to spend that.
But yeah, it's a really good comic.
Well, we could sell this at a quote right now for $20.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites. That's going on, or not. Yeah, it's not going on right now, but like since I've read, like that's some great stuff like that, and like that Dark Knights of Steel, and the current like the ongoing Batman right now. And like a lot of people aren't digging it because they're in this shit called Fear State. Like we're just now getting out of Fear State. Like this
the metal Batman
this issue that just came out this past week is the last one that's in Fear State. Now we're moving on to something else.
The Batman Who Laughs.
Yeah.
With the spiky face.
Yeah. I haven't read that yet.
Oh.
I want to read it. The thing about Batman, it doesn't matter what Batman comic I read, just because it's like one of the first ones I've read. I always have like this nostalgic like kid moment reading Batman still, because it's like that's the first time like I really got into comics, like really, like because the movie, as I said, propelled it, and then I was like, I'm gonna get the comics, and then I started reading the comics, just random issues. Like you couldn't find like I didn't have issue 1, 2, a whole story. I just got a bunch of random fucking Batman comics, and I loved them all. I was like, fuck yeah.
You know, I like when I like originally went back to when I went to Heroes Headquarters that time, and I got like those first books I was telling you guys about. Like before that, I'd been looking up like on YouTube like stuff to get into like as a new reader and shit. And like one of the things that I heard from a lot of people was to read Batman Hush. And lo and behold, I go to Heroes Headquarters and they just have boom like one copy left, just like gleaming up at me.
Just for you.
So I was
manifesting.
Like, I was like, boom, I gotta read this. And that's like one of the dopest storylines I've ever read, like in any comic. Like I think that might be like one of my favorites. Like a lot of people say that it doesn't hold up like the second time, like if you go back to read it a second time. But reading it that first time, like just from the writing and like Jim Lee's art and like just like the shit that happens in that storyline. It's just so dope. Like I wish they would make movies about that. Like, I mean, there's the animated movie and everything, but I want like some live action goodness for that. I think
more of those stories where it's more about. That's what I love about Batman too, and Christopher Nolan.
and even the Tim Burtons early on, they were able to tap into like Batman's sort of like gritty detective sort of noir aesthetic, where he's not just fighting, you know, Killer Croc and Clayface and like these more like ridiculous sort of over the top villains, but he's like tracking down serial killers and like you know what I'm saying, like more ground level type shit like that.
That's like there's
Joker and
there's this other one that I haven't read yet, but I've heard that it's like everybody says that it's one of the best ones. It's called The Long Halloween.
Yes.
And like it's like towards his beginning days, and he's like dealing with like the mob families a lot, and like Joker's in it. But like, I don't think it has any more of like the fantastical bad guys in it.
Yeah,
it's more of like his street level days.
I think that's actually what I can't remember which Batman movies pulled influence from The Long Halloween, but it might even be.
Was it not the Nolans?
It might have been those.
Like I think Batman Begins like pulled
the Scarecrow.
Pulled from Long Halloween. I think.
He was always one of my favorite villains.
I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't read it yet.
Just that whole trilogy, man. Like, I fucking love those movies.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen them a million times, all of them. But, you know, and what's really cool about Batman when I was a kid, I wanted to be a ninja when I was a kid. I was obsessed with fucking, you know, ninjas and kung fu and Wu-Tang Clan because of it. Yeah. You know, kind of like the same nostalgia that got into that. But, like, that's what Batman, he was like a ninja, but better. He was fucking like a super ninja. So I wanted to be a ninja, but then when I got into Batman, I just wanted to be Batman.
And he's got the sweet arm blades.
I recently learned about an interesting piece of little like comic / hip hop history. The company that created like Static Shock and hardware, and like it's called Milestone Media. And the guy who co-created that company drew the cover for Liquid Swords.
Yeah.
Like that, I didn't know about that until like yesterday.
There's a lot of cool. That would be a whole nother dope episode. Is the connections between hip hop and comic books, because like it goes deep like that.
Especially like even just in Wu-Tang, we could spend a whole episode just talking about Wu-Tang's like comic book references.
And, there's a reason why they're fucking the pinnacle.
I mean, they even had their own.
There's a reason.
They even had their own like exclusive short-lived comic.
Dude, they talk about everything. Science. They get fucking really surgical with that shit. Fucking love.
But like comic books, definitely like specifically.
You could feel the, you know, the fandom in
Method Man even wrote a issue of Ghost Rider.
Oh, that's fucking. And he was in Luke Cage.
That's right.
Yeah, he's trying to think of like any like the other like.
Common was in Suicide Squad.
Oh yeah, yep. Mm-hmm. Then obviously Will Smith was.
Oh yep.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed that movie. A lot of people didn't really like the first one.
I liked the first one better than the second one.
You think so?
Yeah, I like the first one way better than the second one.
I mean, I like them both.
Like, fucking Will Smith is fucking Deadshot. Like, that was sick as fuck.
Yeah, that was
dope. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I actually got emotional in that movie. I was like, fuck. And then everyone was like, shit. I'm like, fuck y'all. No, your shit. Yeah, I love it.
It made a big splash for sure.
That's another good segue into our last topic of the evening. What is your favorite comic book movie? Like, not even like, it doesn't have to be strictly MCU. It could be anything that has been a comic book that has been adapted into a movie. Your favorite? We've talked about Blade. We've talked about Suicide Squad. We've talked about Judge Dredd, Batman, all these. But what is the pinnacle?
What's the pinnacle, or what's our favorite?
Your favorite. Your favorite.
Well, and this is like not just my favorite.
Well, that's not what we want to hear.
Not just my favorite comic book movie. This is like probably my favorite movie.
Period. Watchmen.
And no, it's Joker. The new Joker. Joaquin. Okay. I fucking love everything about that movie. It's a masterpiece.
You get what you fucking deserve.
Dude, the signal, like the way the camera's set up, everything about it. Yeah. And I can't think of the name for what it's called. Yeah, yes, exactly. Everything about that, the score,
You love it?
Fucking, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah,
it's so good
It's a pretty mind-blowing movie.
that I can't put it anywhere else.
Like, I remember before I saw it, like, you were talking it up so much, like, that kind of made me not want to watch it, because I was like, it can't be as good as he's describing.
Dude,
and then I watched it, and I was like, oh, it really is. It really is pretty damn amazing.
And that might be my biased opinion, but, like, it's the best movie I've ever seen.
Damn.
I've, like, after I was done watching it, I was like, I've lived. Like, I've lived. Like, I enjoyed every minute of it.
After that?
Yeah, like, it was fucking that good. But before that, I really enjoyed Dark Knight. Of course, you know, it's a big one on everyone's list. But
That was a fucking...
Dark Knight, I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, man, like, one of my early memories of Dark Knight, and, like, when I watched that, I think Iron Man had just came out around the same time, the first Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember that just opening scene of Dark Knight where all the bank robbers are killing each other.
Oh, yeah.
I was sitting there like, this was one of the best movies period ever made. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, the second...
I still put it in my top 5.
Getting better and better.
What is the second? It's Batman Begins, and the last one is Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah,
right?
and then
What's
the Dark Knight.
That's just the Dark Knight?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely the best one of the trilogy, I think.
Yeah, me too.
Like,
I think it's everyone's favorite.
Yeah, the second one is definitely, like,
The whole
Heath
thing
Ledger,
with
like, rest in
Two-Face.
peace. Rest in peace, Heath Ledger.
Yep.
Because that was, like, he elevated that movie to, like, another degree.
Yeah, it's so good. It's another flawless movie in my top 5. Without a doubt.
Well,
I honestly could have done without Joaquin, but that's just me.
what?
Yeah.
You weren't a fan of that one?
It was good, but like I didn't necessarily like need it to be like. I could.
Oh man, that was a great fucking movie.
So
Like it wasn't
good.
a bad movie by any means, but I was just like,
And, like, honestly, I'll
like,
tell
just
you.
because the whole DC's all fucked up over there. I'm just like, what do you like? Why are we wasting time on a? Not that it was a waste, but I was just like.
Well, I get where you're saying that all over the
know
place.
what they want. They don't even know what they want
Like
to
to
do.
me, part of it, like even though it was like a great movie, just I know like a small part of them was like dollar signs.
Well, no.
They're like cashing in on the whole.
Well, I think it's the opposite. Because I think that's what they were trying to do with Justice League, and it was shit. So it's like, they're like, just do what DC does. Make fucking really crazy shit that's psychological on some level, and fucking go with it. And that's what I thought Joker was. It's like, that's what DC does good. Don't worry about fucking connecting all this shit, all this bullshit. Don't try to be Marvel because you're gonna fucking lose.
Yeah, because you're not good.
Like, just be DC.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I am a DC like fanboy, because it's how it's different than Marvel.
That's
how it's
fair.
trying to be the same.
Yeah.
So just keep being DC. Just keep doing, even if there's just one-on-one movies that don't connect. Good, keep doing it. As long as you make it a fucking good movie.
Right.
If it can stand alone, I'm all about it.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So fucking.
I agree with
let's
that.
not discuss the great shame of the comic book movies that is Green Lantern, because that is something we do not need.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Green Lantern.
No one speaks of Green Lantern.
We've watched First Flight, right? I've seen First Flight with you, Brandon.
Yeah.
That's what they should have made that Green Lantern movie. Because First Flight's fucking a phenomenal comic
I
book
feel like
movie.
that's what they tried to do.
They
but
did,
it was not,
but they couldn't fit it all into one thing, and they
successful.
made it shit.
Yeah, like, and
Just
the fact
do that and
These
make it a
are
movie.
And just the fact that they did the whole end credit scene shit with Sinestro,
Oh
and
my
we never
gosh.
got to see it happen. Like, it just like
He came back as Shazam villain.
pissed off.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about? Because there's a lot of doozies that people say. Like they say that fucking
Origins Wolverine.
like Daredevil is a giant shit show. I actually enjoy.
I liked
liked
Daredevil. I liked Daredevil, to be honest.
I enjoyed it. I loved Daredevil as a character.
I even fucked with Elektra, like the movie
Yeah,
Elektra.
yeah, I loved it.
Oh.
Yep. Me too. I was all up on it. I was all up on it.
I was fucking with it. I liked
hand,
it. Yeah, I thought it was pretty dope.
You know, and we're in the outcast circle in that
Yeah,
one
like-
because everyone's like, "Fuck those movies."
See, back then it's
if you're
funny.
a fucking fan,
Like back then, I
Fuck
liked
those
that movie purely off. Like again, like back then, they weren't pumping these movies out every fucking 6 months.
we got
of the
what
year.
we got.
So I was like Elektra. I was like, fuck yes, I'll take anything I can get at this point. You
Well,
know? So
and that's
it's
kind of Ghost Rider, what you were just mentioning about.
Exactly.
It's like, when it came out, I was like, I want it.
Yeah.
Yes, I've wanted a Ghost Rider
Put it
movie
out
since
there.
I was
Money,
fucking
please.
6.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
for sure.
that's a good point because like nowadays, like there's at least one a year.
Like we can have our pick of the litter.
Yeah,
I
like-
can go to Disney Plus. I can watch Netflix shows.
Dude, pretty
what's
soon
in
that's
the
all they're gonna
theaters.
be. That's gonna be selling. Is
Like
that
you
shit.
guys said, they got the DC shows, they got the fucking movies, but they're also killing the animated game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got Injustice video. Like it's crazy nowadays. There's
Yeah, it's
back in the
everywhere.
so
day.
spoiled now.
Back in the day, we got like one superhero movie like every 5 years,
I'm like,
if
you guys
we
don't
were
know
lucky.
the fucking struggle.
Well, and all like back in the day, another thing was the nostalgia. I had to actually go to a store, go rummage through random comics. I didn't have the internet to be like, what comics are fucking popping?
Yeah.
Like, yo,
Or they didn't have
give
apps
me
on
the
your
hookup.
phone where you can just read the shit.
Like, give me the hookup. I was like, I had to go there and just rummage through random shit and be like, this is awesome. I love everything.
In the early days of the internet, I would actually go to Marvel's actual website, and they sometimes would just throw up random free comics that you could read,
that's fucking
and like click through them and read the pages and shit. But yeah, man, like the comic game, just being a comic fan back in the day was a fucking whole struggle lifestyle.
Well, and it was different. Like, that's what I'm saying. Everyone's like, oh, I've always been a Marvel. Back in the day, it seemed like no one fucking liked that shit except like the weirdos. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's the coolest shit. Like, I used to play with action figures and like the little board games with the little clickers.
Yes, Hero Click.
Yes. And fucking no one played that shit. No one played that shit but me and 2 other fucking people I met.
You know what's fucked up too, though, is like that shit got so expensive. Like you'd have like a Thanos figure of those that was like going for $20 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like they would have all these different versions of Spider-Mans and Iron Mans, but like they all had like different price value, and some were more rare than others. And
yeah, that's so crazy. I didn't even know it existed until one time I was just I met this random kid, we were talking about comics, and he's like, you want to fucking see some shit?
Like,
and then he started showing me these clickers with like Hulk, and every time he click it, he gets more powerful, just like he would do in real life. And I'm like, what the fuck is this game?
I'm gonna be honest.
How do we play it?
I have no idea what you're talking about with the clickers.
Dude,
they're sick.
It's a whole thing.
I didn't get exposed.
I still don't know how to play the game.
Yeah, it's
but
hard.
the fact that it exists
it's all point based
is
like
mind blowing.
It's crazy.
It's
because it's like everyone has their own abilities and they click with points. It's been forever.
Sounds like you gotta be smart.
It's like a dice game. It's like
Dungeons and
RPG,
Dragons.
yeah.
But with fucking
figures,
Marvel and characters and shit. It was fucking amazing.
Super involved.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy. Like you can make your own boards too. Like you can make your own like it was fucking nuts.
Yeah.
This kid showed me and I was like drooling on myself.
The good old days.
But yeah. Good old days. Going and not just that, but remember having to go get CDs and shit? Like, that's the same era. Like, I had to go get comics. I had to go get CDs. I couldn't just fucking Spotify.
You guys remember when Netflix shipped out DVDs?
Yeah, it's your mailbox.
Like, you had to like wait for them shits to come through. Like
that's why when Netflix like a couple years ago when this whole
the Blockbuster killer, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, I remember
the Assassinators.
I remember like the first time I heard like it was like a streaming thing, like towards like when we were in high school, I'm pretty sure, and I remember you were like, "Oh, I got Netflix on my Xbox." I was like, "The fuck?" I was like, "So you can order DVDs? Cool, dude." And then like you showed me, I was like, "What the hell?" Like you just got all these movies just like at your fingertips, like on your Xbox. Like that's crazy. And then now like.
It's everywhere.
Did you know that like the physical department of
have
Netflix still exists?
Nice.
Like you can still like get DVDs sent to you.
Well, I remember you used to be able to get games too.
Yeah.
Like you could fucking rent games from Netflix.
Yeah.
Do they still do that?
Was that Netflix? I remember that being.
I remember I used to go fucking get Netflix games all the time and be like,
what?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
They used to do that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I used to get games
It was,
that
like, it was like Redbox.
I remember I had
it was when it was first starting. Movies and games, just like Blockbuster, but they did it all through the mail.
Yeah.
Fucking killed them.
No idea.
Killed Blockbuster.
I had GameFly, but I never fucked with Netflix.
That's what's funny
Netflix.
to me.
It was just like GameFly. Yeah.
That's what's funny about like the last few years, like when Netflix really started like taking over like culture, and like Netflix and chill, and you had all this shit. I'd be like, damn, why am I hearing so much about Netflix? And then it was just slowly like becoming this cultural phenomenon. Like everyone had it. Like
it's in everyone's
all
house.
These exclusive shows, and I was just like, whoa! Like I had no idea because I did not have internet for like the longest time.
Me too, dude. I didn't get internet until like I was already out of high school, like, and like got a job, and I was like, you know what? Enough. I'm getting some internet. Like it was ridiculous. Like I'm over here like
living like a caveman.
Fucking using AOL dial-up.
Yep.
Like 2010.
Yep.
Yeah.
Come on.
Why you think we fucking turned to comics? That's all we fucking had.
That's all we had.
I had action figures. Why you play with action? Because that's all I fucking had. Was some fucking Batmans in my imagination, bro.
Yeah, imagination.
I imagined fucking scenarios, and I had a great ass time.
Dude, I used to have epic battles like across my entire room.
Yeah.
With action figures.
And I still think people apply that same kind of creativity and imagination in like movies and shit. Like the shit they create, books. Yeah. Like that's what I was doing in my room, was creating fucking these masterpiece stories.
Yeah.
Because I was an only child as well, so all I had was myself.
End game in my fucking living.
Yeah, exactly, dude. I fucking made epic stories that no one will ever hear.
That's kind of fun.
I would make slow motion like Matrix style sequences in my brain of like fight scenes.
Nobody ever got to see them,
but me.
Like, our talents were wasted.
That all those things like just become a manifestation. I get to just view it.
Well, at least I got to experience it. So you're lost.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned doing that shit, because I remember, like, I had so many older cousins and shit when I was a kid. Like I would just get all their hand me down toys and everything, and like I was never like reading comics or like really paying attention to the shows really back in those days. But I had all these toys. Yeah. And, like, I would just be like, oh, this guy looks sick. But I have no idea what his name is. And, like, I had no idea what his powers are. So I'd just be like, I'm making up my own name and powers for these motherfuckers.
Nice. That's sick.
Like, I'm pretty sure, like, I had this old school, like, I know now who he was, but it was, like, a huge-ass Darkseid toy.
Oh, damn.
And, like,
That's
it was a huge, and, like, I would always make him, like, the big boss.
Yeah,
that the other ones had to fight. And, like, I had, like, a bunch of, I even had a freaking Captain Britain toy.
Oh, wow.
Like, like it was pretty crazy. Like, but I obviously didn't know who he was back then. I was like, why does this guy's American flag look all weird?
Yeah.
Dude, I would have like my own like ecosystem, so like my own Marvel universe with my toys. So like the bad guys would stay the bad guys. Like I would never flip. Like Nightcrawler, I had a Nightcrawler toy. He was always a bad guy.
What?
And I had it was weird logic.
Oh, I see.
It was weird logic, but I just thought he fucking would be a kick-ass bad guy.
Okay.
And then I had Gambit, which is still one of my favorite.
Bad guy?
No, he was me. Like I would try to act like I would be like
I'm him.
He was my favorite toy growing up. My Gambit toy. And he would always be like the hero, like the main dude. But I also had Batman, like a water Batman.
Yeah.
And he was also my main dude. I always just had my like cliques, if that makes sense. Yeah. And they didn't break formation. Like you would never see Nightcrawler fucking fighting the bad guys. Or he would always be, fighting the good guys.
Yeah.
It's crazy how that shit works.
To be young.
Yep.
I know, I love it. I miss it, kind of.
But all right, everybody. That was the first episode of Talkin Comics with the homies. I want to thank Mike and Frank for being here tonight.
Yep.
You got Dishoom.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, we you'll see more from these two here and there peppered in the channel. We'll try to keep this Talkin Comics with the homies.
Yep.
Talkin Comics with the homies.
Those damn commies.
We'll try to keep that going. Like maybe not every week thing, but whenever we can get together, we'll make one of these, put it up. I know this is a longer one, so it's just gonna be audio. So just put it on and clean the house or something.
Yeah, videos coming 2028.
Yeah.
Watch out for
that mixtape featuring
2578.
Yeah, featuring Dashi. If you forget how to sit down, he's got some DVDs that he can sell you.
Sit your dumb ass down.
All right, we out of here.
Late.